welcome to ActiveMQ Essentials. My name is Heath Kessler, and today we're going to be covering queues versus topics. So let's jump right in. So the first thing I want to take a look at is queues. Point-to-point messaging. The basic concept here is that you've got one message in, one message out. That's pretty much it. You've got a queue, which is an address within the broker. A producer produces to that queue or / address, and then a consumer will receive that message off of the broker. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the basic concept, right? So what you've got here on this, what we're describing is you've got this consumer here waiting for a message. You got another consumer down here that could also be waiting for a message too, but the broker's only going to deliver that message once to a given consumer. So that's the important distinction between a queue versus a topic, which is the next thing. So in this case, we have what we call a publish subscribe messaging system, which is topic based. Here we have publish subscribe type of functionality. So you've got a publisher that will publish one single message onto a topic. That topic then will distribute that message to any listening subscriber at the time that the message is received. What that means, and this is an important concept to understand, is that it's not like Kafka or an eventing system where the messages are persisted for the subscriber. What you have is when the subscriber connects, he registers with the queue, and that message, any message that comes in after he connects, is then distributed to that consumer. If he disconnects, any messages coming in are lost. Not lost per se, but lost to that consumer. That consumer will not receive that message. Then if that consumer reconnects, now he will continue receiving. Now there are certain ways of enhancing this type of functionality within ActiveMQ. They're what we call durable subscribers. These durable subscribers, once you connect, it's registered with that topic, and ActiveMQ registers that consumer with that topic. And anytime he disconnects, any messages that are received on that topic will be reserved for that consumer when he reattaches. Again, this could be a problem long term if those consumers do not reattach, or if there's large messages that have a long time to live and these consumers take long times to come back. Obviously, there's going to be problems there. There's also problems with network of brokers when you start talking about durable subscribers across the network of brokers. Totally different scenario. My whole point is that you want to be very careful about implementing durable subscribers. There's other ways of handling this type of functionality, which we'll touch on here shortly, but I just want to make sure that this is an option. You're going to see people talk about this. It's not recommended, so only use this as a last resort, or never, whichever. So here's how you can solve some of those same issues. Let's say you've got a topic and you want to attach to it much like you would a queue. So in this case, what we can do is a composite topic, or destination, I should say. A composite destination is defined in the XML for the configuration of ActiveMQ. So you're defining the topic, and then you're going to tell it how to forward that message. So in this case, what we have here is a diagram that shows we've got co denver.order. We're going to forward one of the messages from this producer on this topic to the co Denver order pizza. That will act like a queue. But we also want to forward this on to just an eventing topic, which means, so now at this point, we're going to push a secondary message to the topic. So you get kind of functionality of both, right? So in this case, the producer produces one message, it gets forwarded to two different types of messaging destinations. Here you've got the queue, here you've got a topic. So from the topic standpoint, any consumer can come in, register with it, and they'll get every event that comes through on this topic as long as they are connected at the time those events come through. Whereas the top one, a consumer has to always receive every single order. So in this case, it acts like a queue, and this consumer can come and go and still receive all of the orders, whether it's attached or not attached, and it's going to be a one-to-one messaging system. It's always going to receive one message and deliver one message. So that's the functionality behind that. The other piece that we're going to talk about here is setting up exclusive consumers. This is a queue-based process. So an exclusive consumer basically says, I need to process everything in order, right? So that's usually the use case for something like this. I want to process every single message as it comes in order. Obviously, if you have competing consumers, that's a problem because consumer A may have one message, consumer B may receive the second message, but consumer A gets blocked by something, whatever that is, right? So consumer B gets more resources than consumer A. It updates faster. So the second message actually got processed faster than the one out of consumer A. Let's say your system can't have that flexibility. You need everything processed in an exact order. Well, an exclusive consumer is how you do that. You basically state, I'm only going to allow one consumer to process the messages at a given time. Now, there's other problems with this, right? Because now you have consumers that are out there sitting there with no messages. What's the point of having these consumers if you're not going to be able to use them? And that's exactly it, right? So there's other options for something like this. So if we take a look at let's take a look at JMX grouping, right? So this is another thing that ActiveMQ provides. So you're putting the ownership of the grouping, though, on the producer. So now the producer needs to know a little bit more about the data it's shoving across the queue. So the producer basically assigns a group ID to a set of messages that are meant to be done in a very specific order. So as the producer produces it onto the queue will determine or see that this JMX group ID header on the message has a value. Whether it's A, in this case B, C, obviously it can be any value, it doesn't really matter. But in this case, I'm using A, B, and C for clarity. So the producer produces it, says, these 5-6 messages will be group A, and it pushes individually those messages across to that queue. And these messages may be intermixed. They don't have to be in sequence because the consumer is assigned a specific group ID. And what that means then is that the queue, when it gets a message in and it says, oh, here's a message for A, it knows it has to send it to this consumer. What that means then is that you're getting every single message in order to consumer A. So, and the same thing with consumer B and C. Those are assigned to very specific consumers. And, if you have less consumers than you have groups, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to assign a group to a specific consumer. That consumer is going to be the one that always gets it. So in that case, you're going to get it in order. So this is just another way to kind of solve that issue with how do I maintain order within messages going over ActiveMQ, especially in an asynchronous environment that needs to be able to scale with lots of consumers. This is a functionality that you could easily utilize. Unfortunately, it requires the producer to know quite a bit about your data because the producer has to know what to group together. It also has to know when to clean up. So let's say you've got an order that has 5 orders as a part of it. Once those 5 orders are done, now all of a sudden the ordering may not matter, right? So you can clean it up, detach it from a consumer. Well, you can do that, but the producer is the one that says, here's my group ID, here's my group sequence number is -1. Now all of a sudden it gets disconnected, that group. So in this case, let's say group B is completed. All of the messages within that order are done. The producer will set the group ID B with a -1 sequence, and that means that just tells ActiveMQ that, okay, I am now done with this messaging group. Go ahead and reassign it. So then message group B may get reassigned to consumer A, or this consumer up here, because it's now available. So it does a lot of smarts behind the scenes. So the last thing we're going to talk about real quickly is just high availability and kind of how the system kind of functions. ActiveMQ has the ability to attach to persistence layers for KahaDB, which is basically file-based persistence, or JDBC. LevelDB was in there for a while. It's deprecated, no longer supported. But what that basically means is that when you set up different ActiveMQ instances, you have a primary and a secondary. The primary will start up. And you don't have to assign or tell which one is primary or secondary. You don't have to. You can, but it kind of defeats the purpose. So ideally, it's just whichever one starts up first, gets lock on either the file system or the JDBC table, is the primary ActiveMQ broker. The secondary will just come up, provision itself, be ready to go, and it'll ping. And it'll ping every X number of seconds. I believe the default is 30 seconds to begin with. You can tweak that, because if you have to have high-speed failover, or the other problem that may arise is if you have a lot of data in there, because when it first initializes, there are the amount of data that's still in the queues obviously is going to determine how fast something can be started up. But from the standpoint of what happens here is you've got the primary, you lose the primary, loses those connections, the file lock is released, the secondary sees that the file lock is available, picks it up, and starts to initialize itself, and then connects to the data, to the consumers and the producers. And the consumers and producers all have the connection mechanism for the failover. So they will know, like when one connection goes down, they will try the secondary, and so it'll flip back and forth. So ideally, this is full high availability, meaning that the system will always be available to your consumers, and they will constantly try to reconnect if something goes down. So that pretty much does it for today. Hopefully this provided you some insights into how to utilize ActiveMQ and the differences between queues and topics. So until next time, we'll see you.